Hey, how's it going? My name is Enan Starnes, and today I'm going to be talking about the Berlin Airlift. So, a brief introduction. Today I will discuss the Berlin Airlift, one of the most important aviation operations in history. It was a logistical and economical wonder. The way that they were able to pull it off and everyone coming together in order to make something happen was something that needs to be studied, and it's just an awesome story. So, the Berlin Airlift occurred from 1948 to 1949 during the early stages of the Cold War. It demonstrated how aviation could be used not only for war, but also for humanitarian aid and political strategy. So, the parties involved were the United States, Great Britain, France, and West Berlin. The Soviet Union controlled East Germany and imposed the blockade, and key leaders included people like the president at the time, which was Truman, and Stalin. Thousands of military and civilian pilots participated, and more than 2 million residents of West Berlin depended on the airlift for survival. So during this time, the technology that was utilized was cargo aircraft. These were the backbone of the operation. These were things like the C-47 and the C-54. The aircraft transported food, coal, fuel, medicine, millions of pounds of stuff in order to help the people in West Berlin. Advanced flight scheduling and air traffic management were developed to handle the enormous volume of flights. At peak operations, aircraft landed approximately every few minutes. After doing the calculations, an aircraft would land every 1.3 minutes every single day, which is insane. That's a lot of aircraft flying in and out. The airlift proved that large-scale logistical support could be accomplished through aviation alone. This was something that was never done before, and it was ahead of its time. What world war issues were affecting the event? At the time, the world was entering the Cold War. Tensions between the Soviet Union, or the USSR, and Western democracies and the Allies were increasing. And Germany had been divided after World War II into separate parts, and the Soviet blockade was an attempt to gain control over all of Berlin, to reunite all of the separation that had occurred. The Soviet Union wanted a pretty much communist utopia where they just would shut out the Axis powers so that they can do what they wanted to do with their own ideologies. But the United States wanted to contain the spread of Soviet influences without starting another war. That was very important to Truman at the time. The Berlin Airlift became a symbol of freedom, cooperation, and peaceful resistance. The significance behind this was that the Berlin Airlift delivered more than 2 million tons of supplies. It prevented West Berlin from falling under Soviet control, as it totally would have if we didn't step in. And it demonstrated the strategic importance of aviation in global politics and humanitarian options. The success of the airlift strengthened Western allies and helped shape the future of the Cold War. The Berlin Airlift remains one of the greatest examples of aviation being used to save lives and support freedom without direct military conflict. This was a chess game that the United States participated in combination with the UK, or Great Britain, against the Soviet forces. But what stuck out to me the most was they didn't come at it from trying to outwar them or murder or killing or anything like that. They were literally providing food to people who needed it, and they did it through large-scale logistical aviation. And I think that's a really cool thing, and I'm sure we'll end up in situations where that will be the case again, and we can take note from this that it is possible. Something else that really stood out to me was when I think of the Berlin Wall, it is the dropping of candy from little parachutes. And this was like way later on, after they already started doing the Berlin airdrops. And it was from a pilot named Gail Halvorsen. And he was known as the Candy Bomber. And he originally had the idea, he was just a solo pilot, and he had candy and parachutes and started dropping them, and kids would wait for them. It would be a moment of happiness amongst terrible political turmoil. And after doing so, it became customary for every single aircraft after that to have candy parachutes and dropping them wherever they saw fit. I just think that was such a cool and human thing. So yeah, that's a little bit about the Berlin Airlift. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did researching this, and have a good rest of your day. Bye.